Magdi,
Yes, John.
this is John. I do have a
Yes,
question.
yes, John.
Um, and the question is, I get confused. It's living life. I have some dissent. There's the idea and the reality that everything is arising and that consciousness is the base, and everyone wants to term all that, and that's who I am, where that is at the end of everything, and um, and so I see that, and yet at the same time, um, that silence is there for me, and I can see things arising, yet like going to work and being with people, um, it's one thing to sort of have those thoughts or those ideas in my head or that feeling in my body when I'm alone. But when I'm with others, there's a whole another energy that seems like that appears,
Hmm.
and it's difficult to keep that or to have that be, and or to keep. Well, it's hard that it's not. I don't see it there.
Hmm.
And the other part is the confusion part. Really is that my mind gets confused on how do I operate, say at work and so forth and so on, um, when it seems like I'm
Okay,
just to
uh,
be consciousness.
okay, I understand your question.
Okay.
Um, Maybe you want to mute your mic for a minute, if
Yes.
possible. This way, oh yes, we might avoid the echo, I'm not sure. Yes, good. Can you, I'm assuming you can hear me. If you cannot hear me, just put your mic back on, let me know. So, John, while in complete ignorance, we operate as an isolated entity, as a limited entity, as a immortal entity, as a person, without being in touch with the pain that it produces, sort of on as if we're on remote control, just reacting and reacting to events that happen in the world. Uh, what is occurring now, as I'm hearing you, is that you're experiencing peace, you're experiencing the reality of consciousness, the peace of consciousness, and then you're experiencing the turmoil of the individual identity at work and in other situations. So already, John, it's a good thing that you are experiencing the peace and the tranquility of consciousness when you're alone. That's beautiful, because previously, even when you were alone, you were still ravaged by the impression of the me impression and the concerns and the worries about yourself and about your life and so on. At least now you have available to you, when you're alone, the peace and happiness of knowing yourself as presence, as consciousness. So that's already a good thing. Also, what is also a positive um, sign for you, a positive unfolding for you, is that at work when there is the interaction with others, and then you experience yourself as me, and you experience the others as others. Do they like me? Am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? Why are they doing this and not doing that? You're experiencing the unhappiness of that. So there is an awareness that is not what peace is. So that's also a good thing, to be aware of the unhappiness of the me impression is also a good thing. Now the question is, how can you be in relationship, whether it's at work or with friends or other sorts of relationships, and still be the peace and the tranquility of consciousness? How to do that? Well, whenever you are unhappy, it is helpful to notice what is the cause of your unhappiness. Because if you are ignorant of the cause of your unhappiness may continue. But once you become knowledgeable, knowing of the cause of your unhappiness, then you can address that, you can explore that, you can contemplate that. And as we've already explored in other meetings together, that the source of unhappiness is this habitual tendency to believe yourself and feel yourself as a limited body-mind, as a limited entity, and overlook that what you truly are is a borderless aware presence. That the cause of the unhappiness is the reduction of presence to a me, to a limited individual presence. That understanding is an important understanding, because you could see it at work in relationships. You could see the tendency in relationship to revert to a me, that I am this person and you are this other person. And you can question at that moment, because at that moment of noticing that the cause of this unhappiness right now at work is because you are reverting back to perceiving yourself as a me, feeling yourself as a limited entity, and perceiving the other as a separate entity, as a separate person. You can explore, are there any other possibilities to be in this moment? Is it possible in this moment to be just complete presence? Just to ask yourself this question. Is it possible to be in this moment complete presence? Which is a different thing from judging yourself for having failed, or judging yourself for reverting back to the me impression at work, or perceiving that there is a problem that you are trapped in. All of whatever thoughts arise when you are unhappy, you need to find out if that is the case. Whatever thoughts arise when you're unhappy are trying to avoid avoid presence. They're trying to avoid presence. Thinking is a form of diversion, a form of distraction, or trying to escape. And in this attempt of through thought to escape, you are maintaining the impression that you're trapped. So you have to be watchful that thinking when you are unhappy is attempting to avoid presence. In presence, there are no problems, because presence has no borders. Presence is not my presence versus your presence. It's not a presence that starts here and ends there. Presence is not contained in any container. So at work, when you notice the internal conflict that's starting, first notice that the cause of this internal conflict is that you have, at that moment, adopted the belief that you are John, that you are a man, that you are a person, and the other is another. You have moved away from the knowingness that you are this borderless presence. You can come to that understanding at that moment, that the unhappiness that you're experiencing at work is because of a me and another, and there is all sorts of concerns about me. The concerns about me are thoughts. Am I liked? Am I loved? Am I doing the right thing? Am I succeeding? Am I saying the wrong thing? And also the feeling, the me feeling. Both the thought and the me feeling that comes with the thought are an avoidance of presence. So if you can use this understanding to facilitate the path for you to be in simple, pure presence, to be the simple, pure presence that is, and recognize that the other is that very same presence that you are. That presence is not a personal presence, it's a universal presence. That the other, the so-called other, is that very presence that you are, believing that they are Joe, Mary, Jim, whatever, while in fact they are that same presence that you are. So in that understanding, this tension between me and another is reduced, is not what we are experiencing, and not what we are entertaining. Because if you are entertaining some sort of tension between you and another, then the mind will be spinning and spinning, trying to find a way to end this tension and to come to peace. But the peace that the mind spins to look for is not a real peace. It's just an avoidance of the peace that is, of the peace that presence is. You follow?
I do follow you, Magdi, and you're right on with the tension. The energy is there, and the energy always seems to pull me back into the me, it appears, even though that's not really the truth. I mean, because obviously the formless is always there. And you're right. And I think noticing it even at work, this is what's happening now, is noticing it, or not even having a struggle to notice it, but it's there always.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore it usually different thoughts will come up, and I can manage and navigate the other things. But definitely it is the tension, and so noticing this, and then also noticing, as you said, or knowing and noticing and understanding that it permeates everyone and everything, and that's helpful. So
Yeah.
I just need to continue to know who I am, even in these particular kinds of situations.
Right. Right. It's knowing yourself as being this presence, and knowing the other to be that very same presence. It's one presence. Recognizing the other as yourself. Because as long as you're imagining the other to be another separate from you, there is some sort of concern about whether I'm accepted, whether I'm doing the right thing, whether I like them, whether they like me, and so on. And all of that is a spinning mind. All of that comes with the impression, the belief that I'm a me and they're a them. So contemplating in your work life is beautiful, because this is where the rubber hits the road, is in your life, in your relationships. Is it possible for you to be in complete openness, in complete vulnerability, and you may be very happily surprised that there is no harm that happens to you. There is no actual there are no possible negative consequences that happen in your recognition and your living as the universal presence. You have to explore that in your life and see for yourself that, aha, yeah, that works. It's amazing. When I'm just in simple presence with people that before at work I used to get, all defensive and so on. When I'm in simple presence, the entire space relaxes, and in some weird, strange way, the space relaxes, and you find the other two that used to sort of struggle with you before, they find themselves more amiable to you, more open to you, and happier to in their relationship with you.
Yes. I have to say, though, that sometimes it appears that there are in there are um, individuals who, even the more loving or the more open one is, might see it appears that that's an opportunity for them, for some reason, to they don't accept that. They matter of fact, see that as a vulnerability and even do other things. But that's all in my thinking. Whether it's happening or not doesn't negate the fact that I am still present.
Yes.
I think that's really important. What I love, what I know to love, and it's coming back to this always now, and that is is um, is this love for the truth, and this love for love, and there's no other place I want to be. So
Beautiful.
That's,
yeah, it's not so much about a strategy that would make you happier in your relationship, but it would happen. It occurs that way of itself. It's not a strategy, but it works of itself, because for a conflict to exist, both parties have to sort of have a position, a me position, a different stance that are opposing each other. Now, there are some individuals, yes, that have a contraction across the board, even when they're in the presence of somebody who's very loving and friendly and innocent in a way, is not doesn't have a personal agenda with them. They still have this vasana, this tendency to want to push and poke but in the case of being in relationship with individuals like that, uh, there is no sense in sparring with them. You can maneuver your way around somehow. You will find your way to maneuver your way around folks like that. And but it's all loving. It's not about, you know, perceiving a problem. It's just intelligence to move away from relationships and situations like that. And in your abiding as the self, in your abiding as consciousness, at times, and maybe oftentimes, you may not perceive the consequences right away. But in time you will. And the consequences are very sweet.
Okay, Magdi. The important thing that I just heard was it's not a strategy. It's not a strategy. I guess the idea it's not a strategy for some outcome, an external outcome, and so again, it is abiding in self, and because as long as I have a strategy, I'm going back to the tension. So
right.
I'm wanting something, an outcome that is more external. So I will go back to the laboratory Monday.
Yes, well, it's beautiful. Okay. So if there are any other questions, anything on your mind? Hello, Smith DC. You're right. I can believe myself to be universal consciousness more easily than I can feel it. I often still feel separate in my body. Oh, Barbara. Hello, Barbara. Especially when in pain or sick. Yes, Barbara. It's good, you know. We start with a proper understanding, Barbara. Initially, we believe we are the body. We believe we are this body-mind, mortal body-mind, and consciousness is some concept. And then at some point we start believing we are consciousness, but it's important that your belief that you are consciousness be somehow substantiated with an experience. It's not sufficient to believe that you are consciousness. So in this very moment now, Barbara, you perceive this perception. The perception is an image that appears to you on the screen. You, the perceiver, do not appear on the screen. The image appears on the screen. The image may be a perception, a visual perception, a sensory perception, or it may be, the image may be a thought, the thought of New York City, or the thought of the ocean, or it may be a bodily sensation. The point is that whatever appears to you, but you perceive whatever appears without being a perceivable object. So consciousness is the reality that perceives this perception. And in fact, this is what we refer to as I perceive. And then we add the adjective I, Barbara, I, Megdi, I, Joe, I, Jim. But before we even say I, Barbara, or I, Megdi, whatever perceives is genderless and has no name. The name comes afterward as an afterthought. So, more than believing that you are consciousness, to notice the consciousness that perceives. Not you don't notice it as you notice a tree in the backyard. You notice it internally, directly, because you know you are conscious. So you know you are conscious because you are consciousness that is conscious. It is consciousness that is conscious, and that's what you are. So you turn your contemplation not just towards, I know that I'm consciousness, but to get closer, to notice that which is not perceived. Not just what is perceived, which is fine. It's important to notice what is perceived so you don't bump into it. So you can enjoy it, so you can celebrate it. But it's also important that you notice what is not perceived, which is consciousness. So that knowingness that I am consciousness is more than just I believe that I'm consciousness. It has an experiential feel to it. But coming back to your question, Barbara, yes, let's say the revelation of the self, the revelation of truth, goes through certain process. There is a phase to it. The first is knowing yourself, that you are consciousness, not believing. It's not a belief. And belief is adopting a certain theory or a certain conclusion without experiencing it. You see, it's different from a belief. You have to experience consciousness. And because you are consciousness right now, you're conscious of this perception, and you are conscious that you're conscious. You're aware that you're aware. Yes, so it's that experience, that knowingness, that is more important than the belief, which I'm sort of repeating myself on. That's an important point. But even after we know ourselves to be consciousness, there's an experiential knowingness of myself as consciousness, and that this consciousness is, as you write in your question, universal, meaning it has no borders. It's not contained in any body-mind. It's not contained in any space. It's not contained in a room. It's not contained in a village. It's not contained in a city. It has no borders. Universal means it has no starting point and no ending point. So the knowingness that I am consciousness, which is experiential, and that this consciousness is universal, does not completely dissolve the tendencies, the me tendencies, the reactions, the knee-jerk reactions, and the other subtle me impressions that are stored in the body-mind. But what helps you in releasing those tendencies, the me tendencies, the feeling that I'm a me, is life, meaning the experiences that occur to you in life. People talking to you the wrong way, maybe not laughing at your joke, maybe cutting you off in traffic, maybe the promotion goes to somebody else, maybe your partner breaks their promise, or you have an appointment and the other party doesn't show up on time, etc. There are many situations that will arise in life that will trigger the me, that remaining tendencies that are at the feeling level, tendencies that we have sort of picked up over decades, that are somehow stored in the body-mind space, and that get triggered. Oh, why did they do that? How dare they do that? Oh, they should know better. Why are there me and them, I and the other? These tendencies that so quickly get on board. So life situations will trigger these feelings of being a me out to the surface. But they're being triggered, and they can be allowed to be. In other words, they don't need to be triggered for you to solve them or to fix them. They're just being triggered to be released. They are releasing. And the way they release is by your non-interference. You do not justify, you do not blame, you do not try to think your way around it. You don't make stories about it. You just don't interfere. You remain as that, as the aware presence, like the sky is completely unstirred by the weather, completely unstirred by the clouds that arise, no matter what shape the clouds take. Yes, so Barbara, you're right. I will keep noticing my experience, but not interfering. Yes, notice your experience, but also notice, Barbara, that what you are, the aware presence that you are, is untouched by the experience, is untouched by the weather, is untouched by the feeling, by the emotions, by the thoughts, is untouched by bodily sensations. That's an important understanding to come to realization that I, this aware presence, what we refer to as universal consciousness, I don't take on the shape of the weather. I don't, if there is a fire, I don't burn. Whatever appears on the screen is like my dreams. In your night dreams, all sorts of dreams arise to you, all sorts of mind events, night dream events. You may travel to distant places, but you wake up in bed. Nothing occurs to consciousness. Nothing occurs to what you truly are. So yes, you can contemplate that and welcome the experiences that occur in your daily life, because consciousness is clearing out the space, is removing the barnacles, the remnants of ignorance out of your space, which is very beautiful. So if there are any other questions, anyone has anything they want to explore? Hello, Lawrence. You're right, is the soul, hello, is the soul part of the illusion of self? What do you mean by soul?
That which is in the world, that which engages in day-to-day conversation, that which perhaps leaves, that which when say true self is always there, has existed, is not born or die, that the soul is somehow connected to the body mind that die, that of the illusion that comes and goes and dies and may be reborn. I don't know. I don't know whether it's actually reborn, but is it that which does it have? Is it part of, or rather than saying is it part of, what is the soul, or what in that context?
Okay. So we all have an intuitive sense, Solomon, that there is one reality. That there may be many forms, many mind events, infinite mind events, but there is one reality. We have an intuitive sense of that. It's not something that we can prove via thinking or via any experiment, because there is nothing that can prove the one reality, because in order to prove the one reality at the mind level, you need A to prove B. Something needs to prove something else. Some experiment needs to prove this one reality. But there is no mind experiment that can be conducted to prove the reality and the oneness of consciousness. But we have an intuitive sense that there is one reality. which is referred to as God or Atman or Brahman or the Absolute or Truth or Consciousness. Now, in terms of body-minds, there are, in our experience, perceptions, thoughts, meaning mentations, perceptions meaning sensory perceptions, and bodily sensations. We perceive a world, we perceive trees, we perceive the sun, we perceive birds. So there are sensory perceptions. We can hear, we can sense via a sense of smell and touch and so on. There is a sensory realm. There is the mental realm, the creative realm, the remembering, imagery. And of course, there is the bodily sensation. We can sense, for example, our feet on the ground. We can sense a toothache. We can sense hunger and so on. So the way we experience the body-mind is via perceptions, sensations, and mentations. Beyond that, there is no world body-mind. The world body-mind can be summed up as being perceptions, sensations, and mentations. Now, given that there is one reality, the reality that we attribute to the world body-mind, meaning the reality that we attribute to perceptions, thoughts, and sensations, must be the reality, that one reality, given that there is one reality. Now, we know that in this very moment, we are conscious. We know in this very moment that we are aware. We don't know that we are aware by thinking about it. We know that we are aware via a direct knowingness. There is a direct knowingness that I am present, and that I am aware, whatever that I is. That is not something that we know by asking our teacher or our mother or our priest or our rabbi. We know that directly. We know that we are aware, and we know that there is the awareness, which sometimes I refer to as consciousness, in this very moment is real. Given the reality of awareness or consciousness, and given that there is one reality, then we can conclude that consciousness or awareness is this reality. And given that there is one reality, the reality of what is perceived, the reality of the world body-mind, must also be that one reality, which is the reality of consciousness. Although the world body-mind is constantly changing, thoughts are constantly changing, the bodily sensations are constantly changing, perceptions are constantly changing, the reality that they refer to, the reality that perceives them, that knows them, that is their substance, is unchanging. Because what would be a changing reality? That would be an oxymoron. Reality has to be eternal and infinite. In other words, it does not change with time, and it does not change in space. It's not dependent upon time or space. So in terms of the soul, in this entire conversation that we just had, there is no such thing, except if you want to refer as the world, body, mind as a soul, or you want to refer to a certain segment of the body mind experience as a soul. But in our experience, which is always this very moment right now, the soul has to be some sort of mentation. There has to be some sort of conceptualization that brings into our conversation the thought as a concept, and maybe as a belief, or as some learned concept. But in our experience is very simple and very direct. It is made out of perceptions, sensations, and mentations, and of course the reality of consciousness.
Okay, because I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm just thinking that there's so much in the context of history, or in anything from the Wizard of Oz to Persephone's going down to Hades. There's always, these characters are always searching for something, and we have a historical bent of a search, which is different to the actual spiritual concept. It's about engaging in the world rather than the spiritual non-engaging. And I was wondering whether that was sort of soul, with the soul which sort of engages and wants to, that isn't spiritual, if you like, separate. It's a sort of separate.
Yeah, what we're searching for, Solomon, in whatever we do, in whatever direction, whatever quests we do, we are searching for peace and happiness. And to separate the spiritual quest, to say, okay, that spiritual quest is a non-engagement in the world, that is quite a misunderstanding, because there isn't an actual separation between what we refer to as the spiritual, as consciousness, as the reality, as the divine, and the manifest. There is no actual separation between the unmanifest and the manifest. So the sun and the rays of the sun, or what the light of the sun, are not separate. The moisture and the clouds, the shapes of the clouds, are not separate. The water and the waves are not separate. So the unmanifest, the formless, and the form are not separate. In your night dreams, the dreams that arise to you and you, the dreamer, are not separate. What these dreams would not exist without you, the dreamer. The waves would not be without the droplets of water. The clouds would have no shape. There would be no clouds without the moisture, without moisture. So to separate the spiritual, to separate the consciousness from the world, body, mind is a mistake. In fact, once you contemplate the reality of your experience, which is the reality right now that perceives as perception, so it's not a conceptual. Reality is not a concept. Reality is an experience. It's not a concept. the term reality is a concept, but it refers to an actual experience, which is whatever it is right now that perceives as perception. If you refer to your experience, which is the reality of consciousness, and you contemplate the world, body, mind that is perceived, you may come, if you conduct the correct contemplation, to the realization, to the understanding that what is perceived is not separate from the perceiver. A good metaphor is in your night dreams. Whatever you dream is not separate from the dreamer. So how can we separate our spiritual inquiry from how we live in the world?
Yeah, well, I mean, for example, so many, I can't think of a name that comes to mind, but so many, oh, I can't, not a good expression, but girls who follow a spiritual life will leave their wife and family and say, I've got to go and seek the spiritual. So there is some sort of splitting going.
Yeah, but
something going on.
Right. Well, that is not the right path to live your life. Let me put it this way. Okay. When there is a calling, a deep calling that comes to you, not something that you hear or not some discipline that you are following, but a deep calling that comes to you, that you need to go in a certain direction. I need to go to the Himalayas. I need to go to my meditation room down in the basement or up in the attic or whatever it is. If there is a calling that comes to you, that calling is coming from God. That calling is coming from beyond. It's not coming from the mind. Now, if you are leaving your wife, your work, and so on, out of that this is the thing to do, that this is what I heard needs to be done, or that was a cool thing to do, you're moving in the wrong direction. Now, a teaching, if a teaching that resonates to you, if the teaching that resonates to you is the teaching that you need to leave your wife and your family and your work, then that's what resonates for you right now. Okay? If it resonates for you, you're following what resonates for you. If it does not resonate for you, I would not follow it. I would remain still. I would wait until it speaks to my heart. Because whatever speaks to your heart is going to move you in the right direction. It's not sufficient that it speaks to your mind. It has to come to the heart level. It has to reach the heart. And then you act from that inner voice that comes from your heart. And at that moment of action that comes from your heart, you will find that there is no choice. You just have to do it. It's like falling in love. You have no choice. You have to do it. You have to go to your lover. If it's in that, if you're leaving your family, your work, and all your whatever you're engaged to in life, your responsibilities, out of that calling, then nothing will stop you, and you're moving with God. But if you are following an idea or some you read somewhere that this is how the sages do. They leave their wives, they leave their families, they leave their children. The Buddha did, and so I do the same. If you're doing it out of copycat, you will live to regret it. But anyways, it's all meant to bring you back to consciousness. Even the suffering that you suffer in your life is meant to remind you of the love and beauty and infinity and eternity and grace of God.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Solomon, thank you for your questions. I hope that clarified it for you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay, nice. Nice to see you.
And with you.
So if
Maggie, can you hear me? It's
yes, hello,
Dolores.
hello, Dolores. Hello, Dolores.
How are you?
Very well. Nice to see you, Dolores.
Nice to see you too. Okay, so here is what I'm dealing with. Yeah, I guess you kind of touched on it. You always touch on everything, so. But so as I told you, I moved from Baltimore to Knoxville. Baltimore is maybe 60% black, and Knoxville is 90% white. And so I go to different places, and I feel very uncomfortable, especially in light of being in a red state that primarily supports Trump, who is a fearmonger. and like 20% of Trump's base says that Lincoln should have never freed the slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand the high level of this, that I know, I understand it intellectually, but it doesn't take it away from my discomfort in feeling fear. Because like everywhere I go, coming from one place that was primarily black and then going to a place where, things happen to African Americans. So,
Dolores, there are many, many highways out of Knoxville.
I know. I know. My primary purpose for moving here, my parents live over near Memphis, Tennessee, and they're getting older. And I kind of mulled over it for like a year or so. Should I move closer to them because they're getting up in age so I could get quicker to them? And so my primary purpose for trying to get to Tennessee was to be closer to them. And I still, sometimes don't know that if I made the right.
How close to them are you?
As a drive, 6 hours away, as opposed to Baltimore, it was a flight, yes, but I can go there on the weekend. It's not.
Are there other family members next to them besides you?
My daughter moved down there like 6 months ago, but I have 3 brothers. I'm the only girl.
And the 3 brothers are close to her?
No, they're not close at all. And they all have families. I'm the only one that's single with no kind of relationship.
6 hours away from your family, or 15 hours away from your family, you're away from them. You're not to be close to your family in being able to assist them. Let's say I have to be a half hour, 45 minutes away from them. That's 6 hours away is quite a ways away. So maybe you can be 6 hours away in another state. I don't know the geography, so I'm sorry. I don't know the geography of this area, so I'm wondering if there is another.
No, they're all southern. They're all.
I see. Okay. Well, Dolores, there are parts of the world that are pretty sad places to be in. It's best to do your best to be somewhere else, be in an environment that's more enlightened, that's more that has a certain a wider, a broader understanding and a broader enlightenment than so. I would, since you made that move, I would look at the possibility of making another move.
Mm-hmm.
I would, if you are 6 hours away from your family, from your parents, or if you are 10 hours away from your parents, I mean, if you're gonna drive for 6 hours, you're gonna stop twice on the road to rest. If you're gonna drive for 10 hours, you'll stop 3 times or 4 times on the road to rest. So it's quite a trip.
Yeah,
6 hours is quite a trip. So
it's got a trip.
Or I'm wondering if there is a community somewhere around where you are, a smaller community of more, kinder, more enlightened, more progressive. I don't know if there is such a. I would explore. If anybody online here knows of the area that Dolores is talking about, please, email me or let me know, message me. But I would be exploring if there is a community that I could sort of, if I have to be out there, be part of this community. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. I will explore.
Yeah, Google, maybe there are like yoga groups or
I went
spiritual
to
groups.
Magni. I went to one group. It was listed as insight meditation, and I went,
Uh-huh.
and the leader of the group had an exchange of words, kind of, because he was having them look at the light in the candle. I don't know. We just would it kind of, I don't know. I never had an experience like that of being in a group, but I'm sure there may be others, and I'm looking.
Yeah. I think you are well beyond looking at the light in the candle, but
I said, what's going to happen when I'm at work? I can't go get a light.
Well, you are the light. You said
Right.
You are the light.
Right.
You are the light. You don't need to get a light. You are the light. Yeah. So I don't know. Let me see if I can somehow, through some network, find out about something available around Knoxville, Tennessee. Yes, that's Tennessee, right?
Correct.
Let me see. If I do, I will let you know.
All right.
I'm sorry, I'm not very familiar with that area, but I would look for not necessarily a candle gazing community, some other sort of. There may be, just it doesn't have to be spiritual. It could be artistic. It could be people who love the arts, who are, or maybe people who are back to nature. It's, that have like a different exploration of how to live in the world besides this all these prejudices.
Yeah.
So you have your job cut out for you to explore what is available, because you really don't want to just remain for too long in a desert. You will not like it.
Okay.
Okay, Dolores, thank you for your question. Good to see you. Okay.
You.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for your lovely company. Very beautiful to be with you. Thank you. We'll see you again soon. Okay.
Hey, seaweed. Seaweed. Where? Hey, Candace. Sitting at home. Nothing. What y'all doing? What?